CEO Sleepout is we sleep out, wake up, change lives. The wake up is that wake up call that when you're lying in your sleeping bag on the cold floor and the cold seeping through, and your brain's on high alert because even though you're safe, your brain understands that you're not in your safe bed. Hopefully you are thinking, okay, this is not good. I can't imagine how anybody could do this night after night. What more can I do in business? What's my power? What's my influence? And I actually believe that SME leaders and businesses, they've got a massive opportunity. They've got the power and they've got a responsibility to actually go back to their business and think, okay. And the way to do that is a little formula. Values of the leader, what matters to the workforce, also what does the workforce care about, what matters, find out what ticks their boxes, overlay that with what latent resources you've got in the business, overlay that with your immediate supply chain, ecosystem, community needs, any obvious needs that could be filled in the community that you could help with, or within the workforce or within the extended families of or extended supply chain workforce. Get busy. That's the formula. I'll say the other thing about that is the quickest route, the shortest walk to feeling that you are living purposefully or living with your values is to be of service to others. I do honestly think if you're looking for a quick win, think, well, how can I help others? What's a quick thing? Could I volunteer somewhere? What can I get involved in? And that can start to guide you on that pathway. We talked about values, but very few people, it becomes clear, have actually sat and contemplated their personal driving values. So every decision we make is dictated by those inner values. Every choice we make, every life choice we make is dictated by those inner values. They are our compass, whether we like it or not. But actually, until you sit and really think it through, well, what made me make that decision? What about that made me make that decision? And really interrogate that, contemplate it, then we come to that realization of what our values are and we could potentially list them. But very few people have done that, Barry. And I think as a starting point, have a 10-minute sit and think with yourself if you're listening to this and think, okay, well, I've made some big life decisions. What drove those? So we can really get to the nub of what those are, but we do need to sit and contemplate it.
And write them down. Welcome to the Success Consultancy's Just Great People podcast, the podcast that introduces you to ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. My name is Barry Eustance, and I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Hi, everybody. It's Barry Eustance. Welcome to the Just Great People podcast. Delighted to introduce Bianca Robinson from CEO Sleepout UK. Bianca's the CEO. The topic we're going to talk about today is one that Bianca requested we talk about, and it's very close to both of our hearts. It's purposeful leadership and weaving that into the fabric of society. Bianca, welcome to the Just Great People podcast. Delighted to have you here. We'll tell everybody how we met, and I'll hand over to you to give a little bit of background about you and CEO Sleepout UK.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. Oh, it's awesome to be here and good to be with you today. Oh gosh, we met on the day I think my head exploded. It exploded for a good reason, because we saw some of the most extraordinary human beings on this planet talk about their inhuman feats of kind of endurance, of achievement, of inspiration, of all of those things. And I think everybody in that room was a little bit gobsmacked. But
putting it mildly. Putting it mildly.
The caliber was off the scale, wasn't it? And it started with
absolutely.
we had Adam Ocean Walker. He swam the 7 most deadly oceans in the world. He swam them, and then we had the lady who survived the 7/7 bombings in
Martine Wright,
and went on to win a medal at the Paralympics. And then we had the lady who, and sorry, I'm just rattling this off because I won't have the names in front of me, but the lady who
Daniels
who had
and
then walked herself to the North Pole not once but 6 times.
Yeah, and she was working in a bank. Thought, do you know what? I need to walk to the North Pole. You'll see there's a trailer actually to the Be World Class sort of summary video, and that's Anne explaining how she was tracked by a polar bear for 3 days.
Nobody needs that in their life.
Yeah,
Nobody needs that in their life. But anyway, she did it.
No, and then John Volanthen, who was one of the key divers and orchestrators of the Thai football team's rescue 13 kids out of cave, 6 kilometer swim, basically underwater with really roaring
And
currents.
for me,
And so that was
and for
John.
me, can I just tell you that, I was beyond obsessed with the Thai boys in the cave and the rescue. And I had read Rick Stanton's book, and I read the audiobook version. So where he takes you through every single sump dive of his career and how he came to kind of design the equipment and work out specific ways of dealing with those kind of situations. And he and John were obviously partners. So I was beyond blown away to hear from John, his account of that. It was just, and I think,
And it was so dead.
well, yeah, he's that type of left brain person that, only that type of person could do that as a pursuit. Because as he said, he has to be able to put his emotions in a lockbox to actually get through some of the situations. Have I got enough air for the next 3 minutes? Have I got, all of the things that he needs to go through in his mind, the checklists to make sure he stays alive at the end of it. I mean, it's really extraordinary. And it was really at the leading edge for me of human endeavor. Every single person that took to that stage was at the leading edge of human endeavor. And our last guest,
Mark Pollock. Mark Pollock.
What a guy.
What a guy. Mark had double retina detachment, lost his sight, but then decided to walk to the pole.
Walked to Antarctica,
as you do.
Yeah, to the South Pole.
Antarctica, South Pole. Then he was rowing. He went to lean against a window that actually was open because he was blind. Fell out of that, became paralyzed, and explained with a mixture of black humor, real humor, and just a big factual sort of realism. How he raised $150 million to bring the research silos together find basically a remedy for paralysis that affects 60 million people in the world at the moment, a huge number. Just so inspiring. And we picked Bianca and I were furiously making notes at the same table. So we've got to compare notes because I've compared something here, which is in fact, I went through it with a podcast with Simon Hartley. I hit him with it hot off the press. He hadn't seen it before. We did just kind of a live read through, but it was just extraordinary. And when the next one comes, make sure you, dear listener, and you, dear viewer, are on it because it will change your life.
Absolutely. And I just, and really, I think probably they did save the best for last because Mark, he's the epitome of, a mission-driven purpose. Mission-driven, he's got personal skin in the game. He has a really, really unique perspective on life, but he found himself in the perfect position to actually be trialing and testing these new technologies coming out of universities and bringing them together with business who could fund and develop and roll out these amazing technologies. And really fundamentally it's to get the kind of spinal nerves to talk to each other again, which brings back somebody's movement and a variety of different ways. I mean, he showed us his kind of robotic suits that's, exoskeletons that he was putting on and actually walking in, and just incredible stuff. But I think there's also way more subtle technologies like stimulation technologies that can actually help. So what a human. Dedicated his life. You would just want to give up, wouldn't you? Barry, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I think, and Mark said just that his whole identity as a human was taken away when he fell through that window. And yet he decided basically, and I have the notes here, that you can basically be either a spectator or a competitor. He chose to be a competitor, an optimist or a realist, and he prefers to be a realist than an optimist, a soloist or a collaborator. And as we've just discussed, he wants and is a collaborator. And on that subject, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to get involved in the funding or the research towards resolving this issue, the one that Mark has worked so hard for, then contact us here at the Just Great People podcast, and we'll put you in touch with Mark, or he's available on LinkedIn, Mark Pollock, because 150 million is a huge number to start with, but I think it's only the tip of the iceberg. So a thoroughly outstanding day. Be there at the next one, dear listener and dear viewer. And Someone who's changed lives is the person sitting next to me here, Bianca. You've done a pretty phenomenal thing creating CEO Sleepout UK to bring awareness to
Yeah.
homelessness. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the journey
Well, I
that took
didn't
you there?
create it. I came on board in 2017, but a colleague, Andy Preston, a Middlesbrough born and bred man who'd made big money in the city and came back to Middlesbrough, wanted to do his own version of levelling up once he saw the kind of inequality on Teesside. I live in Saltburn by the sea. I ran a web and creative agency in Teesside. He knocked on my door and twisted my arm to sleep out at the Riverside in 2013. Honestly. And it was March, and it was like, we were sleeted on, we were hailed on, the wind howled, ripped around the stadium, at the outside of the stadium, like you wouldn't believe. But the camaraderie was brilliant. The people got to really know the other members of the business community. CEO Sleepout, is about senior leaders of business, SME business, I might add, getting together and actually sleeping out in solidarity with those that aren't as fortunate. And I said to Andy afterwards, I said, I think this has really got some legs, you could take this to every city and town in the country. Right. He said, right. Anyway, little did I know, because I'm busy doing my own thing, that he had actually done that, set it up as a charity with some trustees and everything. And, he was off and rolling, and he was doing events in Newcastle and in Nottingham and in Manchester, Birmingham, London, Wembley at London, and all this stuff. And anyway, that was all happening. He did that all voluntarily and in his spare time with his support from his PA voluntarily as well, who still supports us voluntarily. But by 2017, I think it was really getting a bit much for his availability in terms of what he could voluntarily do. So that's when I got a call at my kitchen table when I was having eggs on toast. And, oh, hi, it's Andy. I think I've got something you'll really enjoy. I need someone to help me drive CEO Sleepout forward. And at that time, Barry, I had sold my share in the web and creative agency. I was freelancing, but I was also lecturing at Newcastle and at York St John. I had a 3-day-a-week contract as a digital marketer, and I was doing an adult teacher training BTEC. So my timetable,
as you do,
was a little bit, and my twins was going through GCSEs.
right.
So timetable was a little bit.
So you said
I
yes.
said yes. I mean, ask a busy person. If you want something done, ask a busy person.
Yeah, exactly.
So here I am saying yes because I think, do you know what? And I had said and this is why he called me. I had said to him, we worked in the same building, had a coffee, said to him about 2012, I said, Andy, there's going to be life for me after this, but it's going to have to fit with my values. I really feel like I've been going out, winning business, pulling it through the sausage factory, getting the money in, and then it's next. And we'd grown year on year, but I was feeling really unfulfilled. And I now know that SME leaders out there have that feling more than you can imagine. Feel a bit empty, a little bit sick with it all, a little bit, this was my dream, but why doesn't it feel good? I worked out that was because I needed to really align with my values. I really needed to find purpose and meaning in what I was doing. And Andy, when we had that conversation, it felt to me like it was sailed over his head, but he sort of clocks things. You don't realize he's clocking them. So anyway, that's why sort of all those years later, he called me and he said, I think that you can help me take this forward. So I said yes, gave him a day a week, 2 days a week, then 4 days a week. Then we worked out how I'd wind my other stuff down. And by January 2019, I was CEO. So, and since then, and then he was elected mayor of Middlesbrough during that time, during the pandemics, really since then. And I did it all on my own until 2022, when I was able to sort of hire a part-time support. And now I've got I've got one full-timer and 2 part-timers supporting me, and an army of volunteers, I might add, up and down the country. So not just me, but we try and make a difference where we can. And I know I'm monologuing, apologies, but just on that.
Monologues welcome.
Personal fulfillment. I really do think there's no amount of money that can buy that sense of personal fulfillment.
And so important. I mean, first of all, great website. Anybody who wants to have a look at it, it's a fabulous website. Check out CEO Sleepout UK. And the next point is we're, Bianca, you may not know, but in fact, Tony Underwood and I developed a thing called the People Change Leadership Framework. And it's actually an acronym, PEOPLE, and it stands for people-centric leadership. I've got to make sure I get the spelling right. empowerment, so empower your stakeholders, your employees, optimize your organization, and that often involves dual structure. And where are we? Optimization. And the second P is purpose-driven vision, a vision that engages the emotions of everybody who's going to be involved in the change. So they get something not only out of it, but they buy into it and they want to be part of it. And it couldn't
And
be
it
more
always
important.
stems from the leader. This is where the leader's leadership is really important. It does stem from the leader, that vision. And then if you convey your vision in a way that includes your personal passion, your genuine reason for it, then other people will come with you on that journey, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. And it should be a North Star for a leader to really make sure that they understand the why, their values, how it all fits together with their values, what the purpose, why are they doing this? Because I do think, Barry, you imagine if you are an SME leader and your business is out there, you've done the hard work of birthing it into the world, the blood, sweat, and tears, and it doesn't walk like you, it doesn't talk like you, it doesn't look like you, it doesn't share your values. That must feel like the most soul destroying thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm a ex airline captain, so there's lots of acronyms coming. But the reason we call the success consultancy is because we did a lot of analysis, particularly during my airline career, but for investment, and we were also doing stuff for corporate analysis. And we concluded that there were six S's, as in the letter S, that we identified as being valuable for successful companies. And the first one is it should be simple, don't overcomplicate it. The second one is it should be straightforward, as in honest. The third is that it should be satisfying, and then sustainable, scalable, and sellable. Easy, 6 S's. And satisfying is key to it, isn't it? To everything.
Personal fulfillment comes around to what are we in this world for? Getting up whatever time in the morning, 5 a.m., grafting till whatever time at night, to go to bed feeling that it wasn't worth it, but at least there's money in the bank. I mean, okay,
Yeah.
I do understand there's only a select few that have the luxury of, not having to rely on the fact that there's enough money in the bank to cover bills, to cover heating, to cover all those things. There's not, there's a discrepancy here. But if you are running a business, I think that both are possible. You can put money in the bank and you can lead with purpose. And in fact, putting money in the bank is the vehicle to leading with purpose. So I think really, really important that somebody asks themselves when they go to bed at night, how does this really make me feel? Is it really aligning? Is it really, is it really where I want to be? I might be ticking all the boxes, but is it really where I want to be? And that's where I found myself.
Isn't it the case, though, Bianca, that money is actually the byproduct of that vision and that purpose? It's because your vision is engaging people, and that includes the people you're selling to or your products are servicing. And the byproduct of that is money in the bank. Certainly one of the elements that we emphasize, and I guess I would ask you right now, I mean, not a trick question, by the way, but can you describe to someone what a purpose-driven vision kind of is? Because there'll be people perhaps listening to this or watching it going, what does it mean? And
well, it's really big.
It's not
really
that
big.
difficult,
it can be daunting because there's obviously a lot of talk in the kind of business speak world and leadership world where, you've got to live within your vision. And, I don't want to be guilty of just sort of saying you've got to live within your vision because it's huge. It's actually, sometimes you can't even pinpoint what it is. Like me, it might find you. But I think if you have the intentionality to live a life that you feel has meaning and gives you a sense of purpose, then it will find you. And that will be because you're scanning for opportunities to make that real. So that's a bit like me having that early conversation with Andy, and then years later it coming to find me and tap me on the shoulder and say, here's something you can do. And it just so happened that I could take that, run with it. It clicked almost, ticked all the boxes of my skill set, but also made me feel and makes me feel and continues to do so, makes me feel like I'm contributing to society. I'll say the other thing about that is the quickest route, the shortest walk to feeling that you are living purposefully or living with your values is to be of service to others. I do honestly think if you're looking for a quick win, think, well, how can I help others? What's a quick thing? Can I volunteer somewhere? What can I get involved in? And that can start to guide you on that pathway. And the other part to answer the question is, we talked about values, but very few people, it becomes clear, have actually sat and contemplated their personal driving values. So every decision we make is dictated by those inner values. Every choice we make, every life choice we make is dictated by those inner values. They are our compass, whether we like it or not. But actually, until you sit and really think it through, well, what made me make that decision? What about that made me make that decision? And really interrogate that, contemplate it, then we come to that realization of what our values are. We could potentially list them. But very few people have done that, Barry. And I think as a starting point, have a 10-minute sort of sit and think with yourself if you're listening to this, and think, okay, well, I've made some big life decisions. What drove those? Was it, what drove my decision, say, to go part-time from a full-time job? Was it because I wanted more time with my kids? Therefore, is my value engaged parenting or family or something like that? So we can really get to the nub of what those are, but we do need to sit and contemplate it.
And write them down. It's interesting when you take, it doesn't matter whether it's someone who's been CEO of a large airline or someone who's starting out in business. When I sit down with them, I tend to ask them what their vision is for the business and what's their value statement. And it's not a showstopper, but it certainly gives cause for considerable thought.
I bet most people don't have it. They won't have it.
Well, if you haven't got a vision, how can you go? I mean, for me, it's like a destination at the end of a flying route. If you haven't got a destination, how do you know how to get there? How do you know where you're going? How do you know whether you're making it and you're moving in that direction? And what are the values that are going to take you there? So really, really important. Fundamentally, I'd say. And for SMEs throughout the UK and globally, it's really important. Those things, what is the vision? What's the mission? And what are your values is a very good place to start, because the rest of your strategic thinking and the rest of your vision will emerge from there. And what I was going to say, Bianca, is one thing that a strategic vision is not, and it's not about the P&L account. It's not we want to make more money. It's something beyond that, because we want to make more money turns more people off in more organizations than almost any other expression. Whereas giving them something that really and of benefit to their communities and society and their stakeholders is something that really engages people.
There's one person in your industry that really stands out, isn't it? And it's Richard Branson. And I think that Virgin is kind of an extension of his life philosophy that is embodied in that brand. And I think, we can't expect everybody to go to those lengths, but it's quite clear that his influence and the way he thinks about the world and life has been brought to life through the Virgin brand.
Absolutely. Richard is an integral part of the brand, and the brand is an integral part of Richard. Of that, there's no doubt. And yeah, I mean, and in fact, the crews in Virgin do a lot of charitable work globally, because of course they've got that global reach. So they'll arrive at a destination and disembark and go and deal with orphanages and distribute clothing and do some fantastic things. So that's the purpose-driven vision and purposeful leadership, and we bring it into the fabric of society. How do you see that working, Bianca? When you talk about purposeful leadership and weaving it into the fabric of society, can you articulate that for our listeners and the viewers, please?
So I have the privilege of interfacing personally with, let's say, 1,000 SME leaders every year for the last 8 years, give or take. So these are people who come to a CEO Sleepout event in over 20 different cities across the UK. And I, like I say, up to very recently, I've slept out at all of them. I've slept out over 102 times. So I get to know these SME leaders, and I get to talk to them, and I really have a huge opportunity, which I'm ever so grateful for, to convey a message to them. And that message really is that, if you take my LinkedIn tagline, anyone can jump on my LinkedIn and have a look. We blame society, but we are society. So what that really refers to is, if we don't want to walk out our front door on our way to work and step out of the tube and walk past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rough sleepers, which I think is an abomination and a stain on our society. But if we don't want that, then what are we going to do about it? It's only us that can make a difference and make a stand. Now, the SME power base in the UK is the largest power base we have. It's the strongest army.
Over 5 million, isn't it? 5 million
Yeah, and
companies, isn't it?
32 billion turnover annually, 16 million employees. So you imagine if I can get to 1,000, tiny ripple effect. But do you know what? It doesn't matter. They're not just hearing it from me. They're hearing it wherever they go from multitude of different sources. And I'm just one voice in the mix. The CEO Sleep Out is we sleep out, wake up, change lives. The wake up is that wake up call that when you're lying in your sleeping bag on the cold floor and the cold seeping through, and your brain's on high alert because even though you're safe, your brain understands that you're not in your safe bed. Hopefully you are thinking, okay, this is not good. I can't imagine how anybody could do this night after night. What more can I do in business? What's my power? What's my influence? And I actually believe that SME leaders and businesses, they've got a massive opportunity. They've got the power and they've got a responsibility to actually go back to their business and think, okay. And the way to do that then is to think, there's a little formula. Values of the leader, what matters to the workforce, also what does the workforce care about, what matters, find out what ticks their boxes, overlay that with what latent resources you've got in the business, overlay that with your immediate supply chain ecosystem community needs, any obvious needs that could be filled in the community that you could help with, or within the workforce or within the extended families of or extended supply chain workforce. Get busy. That's the formula. I mean, also, you can overlay that with the TOMs or any other social value kind of verifiers and markers and quantify it. So, but that's the starting point. What have we got? What can we spare? What's the need? What do we care about? Simples.
Yeah. And it's, I remember because it just brought back it was a freezing cold day in London. And I was just by Aldwych. This is back in about 1990. There was a lady who had 2 umbrellas and a wheelie trolley and a bit of protection against the cold. And it was November or December. I thought then, and I think now, how can we as a society let that happen? Is to say we blame society, but we are society. I mean, what a profound statement that is. So it's not about someone else, is it? It's about our responsibility for our own community and our society.
We can't wait for the powers that be. It's never, ever going to happen. It's not a short-term fix, but we can do stuff that strengthen the fabric of society. So that's really what I mean by weaving leadership with purpose into the fabric. It strengthens it. It strengthens it. The more we can get involved, and we're not separate. We're not silos. And when businesses, they famously don't have a conscience, they're legislated to do a few things, but it does take that human injection into the business to say, okay, well, we're doing this, we're making this money, we're solving this problem for customers, but we're also doing, and so many businesses are leading the way on that now. I mean, I was lucky enough to be in a room with the social value team from Ish Home Builders, construction company. They're doing amazing work. I think PLCs obviously are legislated, but they take it very seriously and they get excited about it. And it's something for the workforce to get behind and get really excited about too, because they want to know that they're making a difference. They're not just coming in to turn up for the grind. They're actually in there, making positive difference to their communities. And I think they really love it. And there's massive evidence to suggest, especially with Gen Z and the alphas, that they are really driven by that. And I know EY produce a report every year about what's driving them. And we're now talking about a third of the workforce driven by the social responsibility and businesses that align with their values. Huge.
And Bianca, do you think it is a generational thing? Do you think there is this sort of generational clutch where we're speeding up to the newer generations coming into the system who have got this social values and social conscience understanding?
Well, I just think that the problems have come into more stark relief as those generations have come of age. So I'm Generation X. I've always had a social conscience, obviously most of my generation does, and the older ones as well. I got it from my parents, but the problems weren't as visible. They weren't as in your face. We weren't as exposed to them. Younger people now have been exposed to all the world's problems from virtually birth or early adolescence through social media. There's no shielding. So they care. It directly affects them. They care. I mean, you'll remember, and I remember in the 80s, this looming threat of this kind of nuclear winter because of, the Russia and America. And that was a kind of an existential fear for us. We lost sleep over it, right? Now they're losing sleep over that.
Yeah.
Climate change, no future, unaffordable housing, inequality, all of it. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot for them to absorb. So they want to feel like they're making a difference. Really important.
And it's not tokenism,
No,
is
it's
it?
real.
It's because there'll be people jumping up and down and say, well, yes, it's tokenism.
Well,
It's
they
not,
believe,
is
well,
it?
I think,
The people who
and I
engage
think
with
on the
this.
whole, there's a generation of, when you're young, you do believe you can change the world. When you're older, you get a bit more cynical about that. But they've had role models like Greta Thunberg actually showing that you're never too small to make a difference. You're never too small to make a difference. And that's kind of that mantra for that generation, and they are going out there with that belief that they can make a difference, which I think is really wonderful.
And you can. Look, this feeds straight back to the Be World Class conference. And it was Mark Pollock who describes the impossible as with a small I, as in little impossibles, and the big I impossibles. And he's currently working on a big I impossible. But essentially, Martine Wright coined the phrase that basically you can do anything if you believe, if you have that belief that you can do it. Talk about purpose-driven vision. We came out of that conference buzzing
I
with the
couldn't
heads
stop
going
it
like,
in my head. It was just too much. It was almost too much. It was like, how can all these amazing people be in one room in one day? You're lucky
yeah,
to meet one of those type of
exactly.
people in your lifetime. But I must admit, Barry, did think, that ain't me. These people are extraordinary. That's a breed of superhuman, and that ain't me. I did think that, and I'm guilty of thinking that.
I think that for me, I coined it here, and I'll read it out because this is for me. These are my notes. Let's say Bianca and I were desperately scribbling notes, trying to keep up with the flow of conversation coming from the keynote speakers. Simon Hartley, when we did a podcast, Simon and I have done lots of podcasts, but one of the podcasts you may remember, we were talking about his Olympic swimmer who was originally a county swimmer in the Northeast, and what they had to do. So they had to define the job and the 5 supporting actions that would make it possible. And so we've condensed those. And so the Be World Class job, if you want to be able to do the impossible, this is my distillation. So when I say my distillation for my use of what it is. So the job is to face and achieve the impossible by applying belief, clarity, courage, collaboration, and endurance in service of a meaningful goal. The 5 supporting actions that will get you there: reframe adversity into perspective, anchor belief and clarity, choose positivity and courage, collaborate without ego, leave your ego at the door, value and endure the journey. And to be world class is to look at the impossible and step forward anyway, with belief, clarity, courage, collaboration, and endurance. The pain will fade, but the achievement and the journey that created it will last forever. And that was my
Pain will
take.
fade. I'm a bit first hurdle. I'm out. I'm not.
Well,
I've done
that was
102 sleep outs. We keep coaching on. I think about my actual life journey. That I'm mum of twins. I've been through breast cancer. I've done it. There's a few things that I've overcome, but I think there's probably more in me that I've yet to reveal. The idea of having to go through a pressure cooker to get there.
yes.
Quite scary, but
It wasn't. And Daniel said that actually she never took it. Anne was the person who went to, was it both poles?
she has been to both poles.
Bianca, yeah.
6 flights to the North Pole.
So triplets, and then let's go to one of the poles. Why not? And she said, they said, and your photographs are when you got there. She went, well, I didn't take any. The journey was much more important. Another critical thing to remember.
Absolutely incredible, Barry. I mean, there's so much food for thought, and I still can't stop thinking about it. And I've got to do my write-ups for a kind of a newsletter series that I'm going to put out onto LinkedIn as well. But yeah, it just is mind-blowing what we as humans are capable of when we decide something and we set that goal and set that vision, and we're driven by a purpose to reach it. And the purpose is the fuel that gets us there.
And you've done a huge amount, Bianca, to move the puck to a different place. And I would encourage everybody who's listening to this, and the shorts that go with it, we'll put out lots of shorts which get a lot of views. First of all, remember Mark Pollock's campaign to raise funds, and remember Sleepout, CEO Sleepout UK. There'll be one occurring near you. I'm not sure there was. There's one in Southampton, is there, Bianca? I had a look. I couldn't see it.
True.
Portsmouth.
No,
Portsmouth.
so actually, and I don't think we're running Portsmouth next year, but we could maybe talk to Southampton Saints again. So
Yeah.
Barry,
that would be
watch
good.
this space. But there's 20
I'll dust down my
there's
sleeping
20
bag.
ongoing on our website any given time. Usually, it's just rolling. So we've got a spring season almost on the website. 4 out of I think 8 now on the website. So all good in the hood there. And you know what we say? Sleep out, wake up, change lives. You do change lives. That will raise big money. That is going to make a massive difference in each location through our charity partners. But often the life that's changed is the person taking part, and it's a really, really, really awesome thing to do. Not to mention you're rubbing shoulders with other fantastic, like-minded business people, and you just wake up feeling like you've done something wonderful.
Who are equally cold.
You wake up, Barry, and you get to go home to your warm shower, hot breakfast,
Exactly.
warm bed.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah. And appreciate it a great deal
Absolutely.
more. Bianca, just a fantastic story and world class in every way,
you so
may I
much.
say. So listen, dear listener, dear viewer, all the details from CEO Sleepout UK and Bianca will be in the extensive notes here. And if you don't want to listen to the full podcast, well, it's a bit obvious, this is the back end of it anyway, but there'll be lots of shorts out there under a minute, so you can make a difference. And the biggest difference that will be made is to you. Bianca Robinson, CEO of CEO Sleepout, thank you very much. And thank you for joining the Just Great People podcast. It's been a
Mine
real
too,
pleasure.
Barry. Thank you.
If you'd like to know more about the Success Consultancy's People Change Leadership and Management Framework, please simply click on the QR code or in the link in the show notes below. And please do remember to like and subscribe the Just Great People podcast. Thank you. So that's it for today's Just Great People podcast from the Success Consultancy. We hope and trust you've enjoyed it. Please join us next time and please do remember to subscribe. Thanks for joining us.